When a cocky guide insults strangers, he has no idea they're the billionaire's parents. The tour group stood in a haphazard clump, eyes wide, hearts racing. The lively city buzzed around them, colors flashing in neon lights, but the air felt thick with tension. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for something explosive to happen. In the middle of it all was Jake, the arrogant tour guide, puffing out his chest like a rooster, spewing sharp comments like daggers aimed at unsuspecting strangers. Look at this guy. Lost? Or just fashionably late to a funeral, he jeered at a disheveled man fumbling with a map. Laughter erupted, but it vanished quickly, swallowed by an eerie hush as the man's eyes darkened with something far more sinister than embarrassment. The first strange element lingered like an unwelcome shadow. That man, with unkempt hair and clothes that looked like they belonged to a thrift store reject, wasn't he just a lost tourist? He was someone significant, someone powerful. The way he looked Jake up and down was far too calculating. A flicker of recognition passed in the huddle of onlookers, whispers tangling with the night air. Did you see his watch? That's a one-of-a-kind piece, worth more than Jake's entire paycheck. The murmurs faded, though their implications hung heavy. Jake kept pushing boundaries, making jokes that twisted tight like a noose around his own neck. Well, buddy, if you're going to make a fashion statement, maybe wear something that doesn't scream "I live in my parents' basement." Laughter rippled, but this time it felt off like an applause that surrounded a horror film, where the audience knew the villain was right behind the hero. The man's lips curled into a tight smile, but his eyes were storm clouds, twisting with unresolved fury. It was the kind of rage that could shake mountains. Suddenly, beneath all the laughter, something snapped. A silence descended, deep and heavy. Everything felt electric. The very air crackled as if the secrets of the universe were about to unfold. You could hear a pin drop. The man's demeanor shifted, turning deadly serious. What did you say? He demanded, teeth gritted. Jake, oblivious to the looming danger, chuckled, brushing it off like a pesky fly. Everyone held their breath, unwilling to intervene, knowing something big was brewing. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension snapped back like a rubber band. The man stepped closer, his eyes narrowing into deadly slits. You have no idea who I am, do you? He hissed, voice low yet practically vibrating with intensity. Around them, faces shifted, whispers ignited like fire in a dry field. Could it be? Who was this stranger really? The weight of their collective gaze turned back on Jake, whose smirk had started to falter, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. A confrontation was brewing, born from underestimating someone he thought was small time. A glimmer of hope flickered in the back of Jake's mind. Maybe he could smooth things over with a joke. But deep down, he felt the tightness in his chest. Each breath grew heavier, and a lump formed in his throat. This may not end the way he thought. The city lights seemed to dim, and the urgency of the moment crashed down around him like a tidal wave. The crowd leaned in, anticipation buzzing like a live wire. And just then, out of nowhere, a sleek black car pulled up, windows tinted dark as night, blocking out the last remnants of light. What was about to happen next? The truth hovered in the air, tantalizing and terrifying. The car's engine roared, its low growl sending vibrations through the street. Everyone turned, eyes locked on the vehicle, as its mysterious presence seemed to suck in the surrounding noise. Jake's bravado faded, replaced by an unsettling feeling that nestled deep in his gut. He could practically feel the whispers from the crowd. Who was inside? What was about to unfold? The car door opened slowly, stealing moments as suspense thickened. A figure emerged, tall and imposing, draped in a tailored suit that exuded power and elegance. The atmosphere shifted, the crowd buzzed with shocked recognition. "No way, it can't be him. The CEO." Someone whispered, eyes wide. The suited figure scanned the group, his gaze settling on Jake. Their eyes met, and a split second stretched into infinity. The billionaire's face was calm, almost bored, yet his eyes blazed with a stern intensity that spoke volumes. In that moment, Jake felt like a child caught misbehaving, all his earlier confidence evaporating into thin air. "Do you think it's wise to make jokes about people whose names you don't even know?" The billionaire's voice carried over the rustling crowd, cool but laced with an undercurrent of warning. "Especially when they could be your next benefactors." Jake opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. His mind raced, scrambling for a comeback. Panic clawed at him. This was no longer about surviving a prank. The reality of the situation crashed over him like a freight train. The man he'd mocked wasn't just a tourist, he was part of a world Jake couldn't grasp, a world he had insulted without a thought. Suddenly, the well-dressed stranger stepped toward Jake, cutting through the stunned crowd. "Consider this a lesson in respect," he said, piercing eyes narrowing further. "The next time you think to belittle someone for their appearance, remember, their worth can far exceed the value of your shallow insults." The crowd held its breath as Jake's cheeks burned, embarrassment stinging like hot fire. This wasn't just humiliation, it was an awakening. Jake felt small, exposed beneath the spotlight of judgment. Someone from the back said quietly, "He deserves it." Murmurs of agreement followed, enveloping Jake like a suffocating blanket. "Maybe if you spent less time throwing stones at strangers and more time learning their stories, you wouldn't be in this position," the billionaire continued, voice steady and impactful. With a dismissive glance back toward his car, he added, "Take this opportunity to reflect on your choices." The words hung in the air, echoing like a stark warning. The billionaire turned and walked back to the car, the crowd parting with reverential fear. And just as the door closed behind him, a hand slipped from the crowd, a sleek black envelope landed at Jake's feet, dark and imposing. "What's this?" he mumbled, a sinking feeling weighing him down even more. The chatter buzzed anew around him, but he couldn't focus. Jake bent and picked up the envelope, heart racing as he tore it open, a single folded note spilling into his hands. He glanced around, the world spinning. His fingers trembled as he unfolded the note, a palpable sense of dread washing over him. The words screamed out at him, "Your arrogance will cost you more than you know. We'll see you soon." As the crowd continued to murmur about what just happened, Jake's mind reeled with questions: who had sent it? What did it mean? This wasn't just a night gone wrong, it was the start of something bigger. And Jake had no idea what he was stepping into. What awaited him around the corner? Jake's heart raced, matching the pounding in his ears. The crowd swarmed around him, but all he could hear was the thudding of his pulse. "What just happened?" he whispered, gripping the envelope tightly, as if it could anchor him in this tide of chaos. People moved past him, eyes glancing toward the car, back to him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. He could feel their judgments swirling in the air, thick and suffocating, wrapping him like a shroud of shame. The billionaire's words played on repeat in his mind, mocking him. It felt like he was trapped in a nightmare that he couldn't wake from. "What's in your hand?" someone asked from the crowd. Jake didn't recognize the voice, but he could hear the eagerness behind it. He turned, finding a familiar face among the sea of unfamiliar ones. It was Sarah, a girl from school who had always kept her distance from him and his friends. Now, she stood there, brow raised, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. "Are you going to share?" Ignoring her, Jake shoved the note back in the envelope, wanting to disappear. He took a step backward but immediately bumped into someone, a tall guy with a chiseled jaw and piercing blue eyes. Sorry," Jake mumbled, glancing up. "This is your fault," the guy said bluntly, as if they were old friends. "You brought this on yourself." Jake felt his anger flare, a surge of heat rushing to his face. I know that. I didn't mean. The guy leaned in closer, lowering his voice. You don't understand what's coming. That guy. He doesn't play games. His voice dropped to a whisper, sharp and clear. You're playing with fire. You might want to watch your back. With that warning hanging over him like a storm cloud, the guy turned and faded back into the crowd. Jake stood frozen for a moment, the weight of those words pressing down on him. What did he mean? Watch his back from whom? He scanned the crowd, but the billion-dollar savior was gone, absorbed into the night. Jake felt dizzy, suddenly feeling very small under the unrelenting gaze of his peers. Something shifted within him, a cocktail of dread and reckoning. Tonight was not just another misguided joke, it was a chapter unfolding, pulling him into a narrative he was wholly unprepared for. The crowd began to disperse, laughter and chatter soaring into the sky while Jake remained rooted in place. He had no idea what awaited him, but a gnawing suspicion started to creep, and there was more to that note than a mere warning. Whoever had sent it didn't just know him, they knew everything. He tore his gaze away from the retreating figures, his breath shallow. There had to be a way to minimize the fallout, a path to redemption. Maybe if he could figure out who sent the note, he could avert disaster before it escalated, but before he could settle on a plan, a loud crash erupted from the alley, just off the main street. A car door slammed, followed by the screech of tires. Jake turned instinctively and froze. Emerging from the shadows was another man in a sleek suit, this one even more imposing than the billionaire. He pointed straight at Jake with an intensity that felt as sharp as ice. Come with me. Panic surged through Jake. Did he really have a choice? The mysterious figure took a step closer, a dark smile crossing his lips. You didn't think this was over, did you? As dread seeped into his bones, Jake wondered if this was all part of the lesson. But he couldn't shake the feeling he was being dragged deeper into a web he didn't understand. One thing was clear, whatever secrets unfolded tonight, they would change everything. What would he do when the truth came crashing down? Jake stood paralyzed, the dark figure looming over him, like a predator sizing up its prey. Each heartbeat thudded louder, drowning out the muffled conversations of the crowd as reality twisted into a surreal nightmare. He felt trapped, cornered, exposed. Who are you? He managed to croak out. The question hung in the air, heavy and charged with uncertainty. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, his grin widened, revealing the kind of confidence that sent shivers down Jake's spine. You really don't know who I am, do you? Or what you've gotten yourself into? His voice dripped with amusement, like a cat toying with a mouse. Jake's mind raced. He thought of his friends, his family. What threat loomed over him that warranted this level of intimidation? There was a part of him that wanted to fight back, to show this stranger he wasn't afraid. But the unease scratched at his resolve like a relentless itch. Where are we going? Jake asked, refusing to budge. He had to seem brave, though inside, fear clamped down on him like a vice. That's for me to decide, the man said smoothly, his eyes glinting with something sinister. But trust me, it's in your best interest to come. Before Jake could react, the man grabbed his arm, firm and unyielding, and began to pull him away from the crowd. Panic surged as they stepped into the alley, the noise from the street fading into a haunting echo. The alley was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the walls as if they were alive. Let go of me. Jake shouted, adrenaline fueling his struggle. In that moment, vulnerability mixed with anger ignited something deep inside him. He could see the intensity in the stranger's eyes shifting, revealing the frustration that lay beneath his calm exterior. But the man's grip wouldn't falter. Jake tried to jerk free, but the man was too strong, too composed. I wouldn't waste your energy, kid, he said, his tone turning cold. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Suddenly, a noise stopped them in their tracks. From further down the alley, footsteps echoed, the sound ringing ominously in the stillness. The new presence approached quickly, and out of the darkness stepped another man bigger, broader, and exuding an aura of authority that made Jake's instinct scream. "What are you doing with him?" the second man asked, his eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting an unwelcome visitor. The first man smirked, clearly unfazed. "Just having a little chat. This one needs a reality check." In that instant, a glimmer of realization lit up in Jake's mind. Could this be part of the billion-dollar mess he had stumbled into? Were these men somehow linked to the note? Anger flared in his chest. "You don't know me," he yelled defiantly, squaring his shoulders. "Oh, but we do know," the new man said. His deep voice rumbled like thunder, cutting through the tension. "And if you're smart, you'll start paying attention. You're in over your head." Just then, the air shifted. Someone else approached. The shadowy figure took a step and paused, laughter echoing from behind them. "Is this the part where you explain his foolishness?" As icy fear gripped him, Jake turned slowly, his heart thumping. The last voice was familiar, almost haunting. It was Sarah, standing at the mouth of the alley, eyes wide with shock. The moment felt like it stretched endlessly, tension crackling like static in the air. "Jake," she breathed, taking a step forward. The realization hit him like a punch. He was stuck in a game he never wanted to play, surrounded by enemies and the one person who might help. But what could she possibly do? Just when tension brimmed to the point of explosion, the night became still. Shadows deepened, and uncertainty hung palpably. "Who are you really?" Jake demanded, grappling with the surreal nature of it all. But before anyone could answer, a tremor of something darker loomed larger in the thrumming silence, and Jake wondered just how deep the rabbit hole went. What secrets were buried in the dark, waiting to drag them all into the abyss? Jake felt the room spin as Sarah stood before him, fear flickering across her face like a candle in the wind. He swallowed hard, torn between anger and a sudden urge to protect her. What was she doing here? Did she have any idea what was happening? "Get back, Sarah!" he shouted, his voice cracking. The last thing he wanted was for her to be dragged into this mess. "Jake, wait!" she pleaded, taking another step forward. The tension thickened in the air, wrapping around them like a heavy fog. The two men exchanged glances, amusement dancing in the eyes of the first man, but the second man, the larger one, kept a deadly serious gaze. "Cute reunion, really," the first man sneered, shaking his head slightly. "But you don't get it, do you? We don't have time for your little love story." The second man moved closer, muscles rippling beneath his shirt as he towered over Jake. "What we want is the information you've got. And trust me, we'll get it, one way or another." "Information? What do you mean?" Jake's mind raced. Was this about the note? The deal he had accidentally overheard? Panic bubbled inside him, but he refused to show it. "I don't know anything. You've got the wrong guy." "Enough of the games," the first man growled, stepping closer, invading Jake's space. "You think this is a joke? You think you can play stupid and walk away? You're in a world where ignorance is dangerous, kid." Jake felt Sarah's hand slip into his, a small comfort amidst chaos. But it felt like a lifeline stretched across a chasm of fear. Her eyes searched his, filled with both understanding and concern, urging him to stay strong. "Does it feel good?" Jake shot back, voice steady. "Does it fill you with power? It makes you feel big to threaten people? Cute. You think you can deflect?" The first man chuckled, clearly unfazed. "But it's not going to work." Jake's heart thudded painfully against his ribcage. Were these men serious? Did they really think they could intimidate him into giving up information he didn't even have? He had to think of a way out. The bigger man stepped in closer, blocking any potential escape routes. "Tell us what you know. Or we'll make this uncomfortable for everyone." Sarah squeezed Jake's hand tighter, grounding him, but the threat hung in the air like a dark cloud about to break. "What do you want?" Jake yelled, desperation creeping into his voice. Just tell me what you want. I can't give you what I don't have. Straight to the point. Good. The first man replied, grinning wider. I like it. Suddenly, a jagged sound echoed through the alley, breaking the tension. A bottle shattered against the pavement from somewhere nearby, sending shards skittering across the ground. In the next instant, the heavy rumble of distant footsteps grew louder, pulling the attention of the two men. Their smug expressions shifted to ones of caution. More company, the second man muttered, his expression hardening. Jake turned to look where they were both scouting. He could feel the atmosphere shift. The weight of the unknown raced through him. Who else was coming? Would it be friends or foes? Run! Sarah urged, her voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. Jake's heart thrashed, torn between the danger staying posed and the uncertainty of escape. Time stretched impossibly as he looked between the men, sensing their momentary hesitation. But would they let them leave? Before he could make a decision, the air crackled with a sudden shout. I told you. Get away from him. A familiar voice that jolted Jake. He turned to see another figure, someone he hadn't expected in the heart of this madness. Could that person be the key to their way out? Get behind me, Sarah. Jake shouted, his feet shifting towards readiness. In this heartbeat of chaos, their fates hung in the balance, but he sensed something darker lurking just out of sight. Who would emerge from the shadows next? Jake barely had time to process the familiar voice when a figure emerged from the alley's shadows. The adrenaline surged through him, painting everything in electric hues. It was Max, their mutual friend, a cocky detective with a knack for trouble and a flair for the dramatic. Max! What are you doing here? Jake called, but the words barely left his mouth before Max stormed forward, eyes burning with determination. Who are these clowns? Max snapped, pointing a finger at the two men, his posture daring them to step closer. The first man flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes, while the larger man stepped back slightly, realizing they'd just taken on more than they anticipated. Mind your own business, punk, the first man retorted, his casual contempt morphing into tension. This is between us and the kid. Maybe you didn't hear me, Max challenged, stepping closer, but I don't take kindly to bullies. He glanced at Jake and Sarah, then back at the two men, his confidence unwavering. You're clearly out of your league. The larger man clenched his jaw, and the atmosphere shifted. Jake could almost feel the tension snap between them like a taut rubber band ready to burst. Max, Jake began, but Max raised a hand, signaling him to be quiet. Stay behind me, he said, eyes flickering with concern for Sarah. There was something protective in his tone, something Jake hadn't heard from Max before. Just then, a figure stepped into the light behind Max, someone equally unexpected. It was Clara, Max's sister, who had a reputation for being both fierce and unpredictable. What the hell is going on out here? Clara demanded, her voice sharp as a knife. The alley was becoming more crowded by the second, an unexpected gathering of unexpected allies. Clara, stay back. Max ordered, but she pushed forward, her eyes scanning the scene like a hawk. Max, I've got this, she replied, her confidence evident. If it's the kid you want, then you're going to have to go through us first. The first man's patience wore thin. You really want to make this harder? He spat. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Jake's nerves burned with fear and curiosity. What did these men want? Was it truly about him, or was there something deeper at play? All he could think of was getting Sarah away from this madness. Suddenly, the ground shook with the sound of sirens wailing in the distance, echoing off the alley walls like a death knell. They won't save you, the larger man said with a sneer, shifting his stance. That's where you're wrong, came a voice next to Jake. He turned to see Officer Daniels, the local cop he had often seen at the precinct, stepping into the fray with a small team of officers behind him, all evaluating the scene. Put your hands where I can see them. Daniels commanded, his gaze steady, focusing on the two men. We can do this the easy way, or the hard way, your choice. Jake's heart raced. Would this be their salvation or another descent into chaos? The two men exchanged a glance, weighing the odds. Jake felt the air freeze, every moment lingering like a breath at the edge of a cliff. Would the unexpected help arrive just in time to pull them from the jaws of danger? Max, we need to move now. Jake shouted suddenly, sensing the tension reaching a breaking point. Before he could make a move, a loud explosion ripped through the night. A nearby dumpster blew apart, sending debris flying. Dust and chaos engulfed the alley. In the confusion, Jake grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her towards Max and Clara. Run! He yelled, the panicking crowd around him surging in desperate flight. Together they pushed forward, but the terror wasn't over yet. Shadows shifted in the haze, moving closer. What would they face amid the confusion, and who were these men really? As they stumbled through the chaos, Jake felt an eerie presence still looming behind them, driven by some unquenchable desire for something he didn't yet understand. Would they escape this malevolent grasp? The moment they turned to flee, a thick cloud of smoke billowed around them, choking off the screams of panic that filled the alley. Jake pulled Sarah tight against him, his heart hammering in his chest. The world morphed into a blur of frantic faces and shifting shadows, but Jake didn't dare look back. Keep moving. Max shouted, his voice a beacon through the chaos. Clara stayed close by, her fierce spirit burning in the face of danger. But something wasn't right. In the flurry of bodies pushing forward, Jake felt a sudden, chilling realization come over him. He could almost hear the footsteps trailing them, just out of sight, but unmistakably there a relentless pursuit driven by rage and urgency. Over here! Clara yelled, pointing toward a narrow doorway that led into a rundown building. We can hide inside. With no time to argue, they rushed for the entrance, Max following closely behind. Just as they slipped inside, a pair of heavy boots stomped past them, the figures moving too quickly to catch a glimpse. Inside, the air was stale, rich with the smell of mildew. The dim light flickered above them, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Jake flinched as he realized it felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in. Are we safe here? Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Max squinted into the darkness, scanning every corner. I don't know, but we need a plan, and we need it fast. Those guys. Jake started, but Max cut him off. Jake, it's not just about them. Something bigger is happening, and we need to figure out what it is before it's too late. Clara's expression hardened. You two don't know what you're up against. These guys don't just bully people, they're part of a much larger game. Game? Jake echoed, dread pooling in his stomach. What do you mean? Word has it they're after something in this city. Something big. And we're all tangled in it now. An uneasy silence fell, punctuated by the distant sounds of chaos outside. Jake's mind raced. What could they possibly want? As if in response, they heard a loud crash from outside, followed by a voice, deep and commanding. I know you're in there. You won't escape this time. It was one of the men from the alley. The walls trembled under the weight of his threat, making Jake's skin crawl. Then, two sharp bangs echoed off the door as if to punctuate the man's warning. Move, move. Max hissed, shoving Jake and Sarah further into the building. They ducked behind a mound of debris, but Jake felt fear take root in his throat. What do we do? Sarah's eyes were wide, glistening with a mix of panic and disbelief. Stay quiet. Clara whispered. He knows we're close. We have to outsmart him. Through a cracked window pane, Jake peered outside. He caught a glimpse of the towering figure pacing, his eyes scanning the area with the intensity of a predator hunting prey. The surrounding chaos had dwindled, but the danger was far from over. Listen, if we can make it to the roof, Clara began, but a shout interrupted her. Jake! Sarah! I know you're here. The menace in the man's voice vibrated through the air, wrapping around Jake's heart like a vice. Why does he want us? Jake whispered, desperation creeping into his voice. Clara turned sharply. They want you for something bigger, something you may not even realize you're part of. What? Jake's chest tightened with dread. What could I possibly have that they want? Before Clara could respond, the door splintered under the weight of an attempt to break in. Go now. Max shouted, making a quick decision. With no time left to question their fate, they slipped deeper into the shadows, hearts racing. What awaited them in this decrepit building, and just how big was the game they had unknowingly entered? The truth loomed just ahead, and it was a truth that could reshape everything. The splintered door buckled as the figure pressed against it. Heavy boots thudded against the ground outside, each sound carrying the weight of their urgency. Jake felt his heart pound louder, a drumbeat of fear and adrenaline. The shadows felt alive now, creeping closer as if the very walls of the building were conspiring against them. Now what? Sarah whispered, her breath hitching. Jake's mind raced with possibilities. Panic twisted in his gut. Maybe we can find another way out, Max suggested, nervously glancing at the door. The banging intensified, each strike growing angrier. No. Clara hissed, a fire igniting in her eyes. If we run blind, we'll end up right back in their hands. We have to see what we're dealing with. She moved toward the window, urging them to remain silent. Jake followed her lead, scanning the scene outside. The man who had chased them stood silhouetted against the dim light, towering and menacing. Behind him, a small army of shadows echoed his wrath. They were searching the ground outside, brutish figures surveying the vicinity. What do they want? Jake thought aloud, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. The truth felt elusive, shadowed by terror. They're after something in this city, Clara answered, eyes glinting with steely determination. It can't be just coincidence that we ran into them. We need to push forward, figure out our next move. Just then, a muffled voice from outside interrupted them, deep and dangerous. You think you can hide forever? I have eyes everywhere. Jake's pulse quickened further. The man had more than brute force. It was unsettling to realize they were being hunted like prey. We should move, Max urged, scanning for exits. There has to be a back stairwell or an emergency escape. Jake nodded, and they all carefully began to navigate the shadows of the room, inching away from the windows. As they moved deeper into the darkness, a piercing cry echoed down the hallway, shattering the fragile silence. Find them. They can't have gone far. The word sent shivers down Jake's spine. They were running out of time. He could sense the chaos outside starting to creep in, inch by inch, fear clawing at the edges of his sanity. Think. Clara murmured urgently, her eyes darting about. They're not just after our lives, they want something we don't know about, which means there is something we need to uncover. What are we supposed to find? Jake fired back, frustration fighting to break free. We're in a derelict building with killers on our tail. Something is always at stake, Jake. Clara snapped, the fire in her voice more apparent now. Everything we've done has led us here. We need to embrace it, face whatever is coming. Before he could respond, a distant crash resonated through the building, reverberating as parts of the structure shook. Get down! Max yelled, pulling Sarah to the floor just as dust and fragments rained down from the ceiling. Amidst the chaos, Jake's eyes caught a glimpse of an old, worn-out map hanging crookedly near the door. Something stirred within him. It felt too coincidental to ignore. Wait! He called out, scrambling toward the map. Look at this. As he examined the map, shadows danced ominously. Clara stepped closer, her breath catching momentarily as realization dawned. What do you see? We're on the edge of the old district, Jake said, tracing their current location. This area has layers, secrets buried beneath it. Then a voice boomed again from outside, louder this time. Give it up. You can't hide forever, you're not the only ones with something to lose. Panic swirled anew. The stakes were higher than he imagined. Jake's heart raced as he realized that uncovering the map's mystery could mean their only chance at survival. But what would happen if they found the answers? Would it save them, or plunge them deeper into the game? As the door began to splinter further, dread pooled in Jake's stomach along with mounting hope. They were on the brink of something big, a revelation that could change everything. Let us make this count, Clara said, determination blazing in her eyes. Could they unearth the city's secrets in time, or would it all crumble before their eyes? The answer lay just out of reach, lurking in the shadows. Jake's fingers traced over the creases of the old map, heart pounding as he absorbed every detail. Clara leaned closer, her breath trembling on the edge of anticipation and fear. Look here, Jake said, pointing to a marked spot deep within the old district. This looks like a forgotten tunnel away beneath the city. It could lead us out, away from them. Max's eyes flickered with hope, but Sarah misgave. But what if it doesn't? What if we run into more of them down there? Better than staying here and letting them find us. They might already know we're inside, Clara countered, her gaze darting back to the guys outside. Every second they lingered felt like a mistake. Another loud crack sounded from the door, sending splinters flying. They won't stop until they get us, Jake urged. We need to decide fast. Time felt like it was slipping through their fingers. Jake fought against the tightness in his chest, the fear of the unknown mixing with a desperate need to act. We take the tunnel, he declared, meeting Clara's determined gaze. If there's any chance to escape, we have to take it. Max nodded, and Jake felt the slightest flicker of support rallying around their wavering resolve. Okay, but we'll have to move quickly, he said that in unison. They turned and scrambled toward the wooden door at the opposite end of the room, the only way to reach the potential escape route. Every noise outside escalated their adrenaline, like a ticking clock urging them on. On three, Clara whispered, holding her breath, gripping the map tightly in her hand. 1, 2. Just as she said, 3, Jake pushed the door open with a frantic shove. It swung wide, revealing a dark hallway that extended into nothingness. They hesitated only for a heartbeat before rushing inside. The air was damp and musty, fear tinged with the scent of decay. The light from their cell phones flickered uneasily as they darted down the corridor. Where to? Max panted, glancing back at Clara. Follow the map, she said, holding it like a lifeline as she navigated through twisting turns. They stumbled through the dark, the weight of impending doom heavy on their shoulders. It felt like every step brought them closer to the abyss. Suddenly, their haste was shattered by loud thuds echoing from behind them, footsteps crashing against the ground. They're coming, Jake exclaimed, fear electrifying his limbs. Faster, Clara urged, her voice high with urgency as she glanced back, eyes wide with terror that sent chills racing down Jake's spine. They bolted deeper down the hallway, breathless and desperate, clutching onto hope like it was all they had left. The walls appeared to close in on them, shadows swallowing them whole. Then they saw a faint light flickering ahead. There, Clara shouted, pulling them toward it with renewed energy. They reached it, desperate fingers pushing against a rusty metal door. They had little time left. Open it, come on, Max yelled. Jake grabbed the handle and twisted, adrenaline fueling his efforts as the door creaked open with a long groan. He stumbled inside, every heartbeat drumming in his ears, a warning of what awaited them. As they crossed the threshold, the light widened, revealing a vast, dimly lit basement filled with old crates and forgotten relics. But it was not the clutter that caught Jake's breath, it was the massive map plastered against the far wall, detailing the city above and something beneath it. But before he could speak, shadows loomed at the door behind them. A figure stepped in, blocking the exit. Looks like you found more than you bargained for, the man chuckled darkly, revealing a face Jake recognized all too well. Jake's stomach sank. Everything about their escape had just transformed into something much more sinister. Who are you? Clara breathed, eyes darting between the looming figure and the exits. Hopelessly trapped, the man smiled, a sinister glint in his eyes. Looks like I'm your friend in need of a little information. And you're going to help me find it. Just when hope seemed extinguished, a chilling realization squeezed Jake's heart. If they were going to survive this, they'd have to confront answers lurking in the shadows of the city. Let us see how deep the rabbit hole goes, he whispered to himself, a moment of clarity before the storm, but as they stood there, ensnared by danger and deception, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that what lay ahead would demand more than they had ever prepared for. And just beyond that dark doorway lingered their ultimate test: would they emerge with the truth, or would they be swallowed by the darkness? A silence hung in the air, thick and tense, as Jake, Clara, Max, and Sarah stood before the ominous figure blocking their path. The shadowy man, known to Jake by reputation, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, like a sinister gatekeeper guarding dark secrets. Surprise! You didn't think you could just stumble upon the city's underground dealings and disappear, did you? His voice dripped with mockery. Jake's heartbeat quickened, fear knotting in his chest like a vice. Who are you? Clara demanded, her voice steadier than Jake felt. Let us say I'm your guide to everything you never knew you needed to know or wanted to know, he replied, stepping closer, his expression a twisted mix of amusement and menace. And you're mixed up in a game way over your heads. A shiver crawled up Jake's spine. They had unknowingly slipped into a world of underground power plays and hidden agendas, a world ruled by figures they could hardly comprehend. Why are you here? What do you want? Jake struggled to keep his voice steady. The man chuckled, a low, menacing sound. You have something I need. The leverage your little group possesses could change everything if you're willing to play along. Leverage? Jake's mind raced. What did they have that he wanted? He shot a glance at Max, whose tense features mirrored his own anxiety. Listen, we don't want any trouble. We're just trying to stay alive, Max said firmly, trying to assert control. Too late for that, kid. Trouble found you the moment you crossed paths with my associates. The man glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting backup, and Jake felt unease swell again. Yes, right, Clara interjected, shoulders straightening defiantly. You think we're afraid of you? The man's smile broadened into something predatory. You should be. The trouble you're in isn't just about survival, it's about information. Information that can destroy or build empires in this city. And now you're tangled up with the big players. A shattering realization hit Jake. The secrets buried beneath the city were not just stories, they were dangerous truths that could pit friend against friend, ally against ally. Suddenly the stakes weren't just personal, this was about power dynamics that reached deep into the lives of people they never dreamed were involved. Help us, Sarah began, but her voice trailed off as the man's laughter echoed in the basement. Help you? Oh no, my dear, this is not about help. This is about making a choice. You can help me, and I can be generous. Or you can refuse and find out exactly how deep you've fallen into this rabbit hole. Max stepped forward, brimming with indignation. We're not interested in playing your game, and we're certainly not your pawns. Ah, the man said, shaking his head. But you see, you already are. And sadly, you've crossed a line that can't be undone. Now, the decisions you make will dictate your future. Outside, sirens wailed, a haunting reminder of the chaos that stretched beyond their immediate bubble. Smoke from the alley and the lingering threat loomed like a predatory shadow. Jake felt panic surge again. Fleeting thoughts of escape battled with the realization that they were cornered, trapped. He turned to Clara, sharing a glance charged with urgency. What do we do? He whispered. We play along, she said abruptly, eyes glimmering with determination. For now. We need to find a way to turn this around. Are you crazy? Max murmured. No. Clara shot back. We can't be victims here. If there's leverage to be had, we'll find out what it is, and then we'll fight back. This city belongs to us, too. The man watched them with a glint of fascination. I see a bit of fire in you. It'll make this all the more fun. So, what's your answer? Will you join me, or will I have to make a personal example of you all? Jake's mind whirred, negotiating his fear with the hope of survival for them all. He glanced at Sarah, who held his gaze with fierce integrity. This was about more than him. This was about everyone standing beside him. There was no going back now, so he took a breath, steeling himself. We'll play your game, he said, voice stronger than he felt. But just know, if we get a chance, we'll take control back. The man grinned, and for a moment, it felt like stepping into a trap, but Jake felt new resolve pulse in his veins. They were in too deep to turn back, and there was no use pretending otherwise. Perfect. Welcome to the team, the man stated, draining the tension ever so slightly but replacing it with a new layer of uncertainty. The game was just beginning, and they were all players. As they stood in a web of shadows, laden with secrets, Jake recognized something in himself. He could fight, and he could survive. But he also knew that every step forward would have its price. That he held tight to Sarah's hand as the man turned and gestured for them to follow. There was a path unfurling ahead, dark and tantalizing. They followed hesitantly, knowing that somewhere in the labyrinth of choices laid the key to their future, a chance to reclaim their narratives or remain trapped in someone else's. The future beckoned, and as they stepped deeper into the unknown, they couldn't shake the feeling that their decision mattered more than ever. And in the back of Jake's mind remained the flickering question: who would really control the game when all was said and done? It was time to find out. This was their turning point, and as the door creaked behind them, it sealed the weight of choices desperately made. Now, it was up to them to rewrite their fate. If you don't want to miss incredible stories like this one, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button so the algorithm knows we mean business. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about what happens next. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who want to dive deeper into the mystery. Let's conquer this story together.